Up is Paul Mozina. And if you give your name and address for the record, then we'll start your time. Thank you.
My name is Paul Mozina, 767 Roca Street, Ashland, Oregon. Thank you again for this opportunity to address you. I spoke a couple weeks ago about the MF32 Billings Ranch wireless communication facility, the 14-story tower that's proposed to be constructed at Highway 99, just across from Paradise Supply. And I brought up the point that the county and the city have an area of mutual concern. You have a memorandum of understanding that defines an area of mutual concern and planning with the city of Ashland. This goes back to 1982. So there was a recognition of the necessity for the two entities to collaborate and have a dialogue and discuss important decisions that were in this area of mutual concern, the border area or overlapping areas. And I asked you to please follow up with the city of Ashland about that, and Councilor Benton was kind enough to inform me after I spoke that I should address my concerns with the city of Ashland. And I want to let you know that I have spoken to the city of Ashland Council 4 times on this issue at this point, and I've recently become aware of the fact that the councilors were not even aware of this proposed facility. They were not aware of the acceptance of the application, even though Jackson County did proactively send out notification to the city of Ashland. The elected officials in the city of Ashland were not aware of this project. I don't know about the mayor. The mayor's gone, but I know that the council was not informed. So we have an unelected official in Jackson County in a decision-making position for a 150-foot, 14-story cell tower. They've communicated to an unelected official in the city of Ashland, and that decision may go forward without the participation of any elected official. And this is an area, this is I was at the Jackson County, the Ashland Council meeting last night, and they had their training. And it said the elected officials were responsible for the visionary and planning, the vision and planning of the city. And I can't think of anything more a concrete example of vision and planning than putting a 150-foot pardon me, 150-foot tall a cell tower on the doorstep at the gateway of the city of Ashland. And the email I sent you over the weekend about this proposal shows that because they have chosen to put this tower at the lowest elevation on this parcel, on the northwest tip of the parcel, instead of the highest elevation, 77 feet higher at the southeast corner of the parcel where the railroad trestle and Jackson Road intersect with Highway 99. That's the highest point. There are trees there that could hide this tower. That if they put that tower at that location, they would have line of sight coverage into the northwest side of Ashland. As it stands, with the tower down in the valley, down on the bottom of the hill, there will be no coverage into the northwest side of Ashland. The city of Ashland, I don't know if the people recognize this. I don't know if the councilors know this, that they are not going to get in. The city of Ashland, the highest density population of the city of Ashland, is not going to get any benefit from this tower. It's a poorly. I'm asking you to intervene here and collaborate with your co-elected officials. That's not the right word, but the elected officials in the city of Ashland. You all need to have a dialogue about this. This goes forward. AT&T is going to come back in a very short time saying, hey, you know, that was great that we got this tower over the Billings Ranch, but guess what? We still have what we call a service gap. They're the ones defining what a service gap is. It's from their perspective. They're going to say, hey, we still have a service gap here on the northwest side of Ashland. We need another tower. And all of a sudden, the city of Ashland is going to be facing another tower application to cover the northwest side. Whereas if they put this tower at the top of the hill, at the Billings Ranch property, they would have line-of-sight coverage into the northwest side of Ashland and line-of-sight coverage north and west into Talent. And all their service objectives would be met. But because they've chosen this low-elevation site, their service objectives will not be met, and another tower will be needed. I just implore you, and I know that you follow the letter of law, and I appreciate Councilor Benton informing me and helping me understand that the Jackson County has followed the letter of the law by sending a notification to the city of Ashland. But there was no feedback. There was nothing. The elected officials in Ashland they didn't know about this. They had a 10-day window to respond. And as far as I know, no one responded. This is not what you should be doing with a area of mutual concern of planning between the two entities. I implore you to reach out to them and have some type of dialogue about this tower, because it's not going to go well if you proceed down the path you're going. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Anybody else in the auditorium wish to speak?
And this has come up before with Mr. Messina, but land use is a very procedurally driven area of the law. And in our case, and I think this is mentioned before, the Board of Commissioners has delegated this type of application to a staff decision and an appeal to the hearings officer. So the Board of Commissioners, well, Mr. Messina, you are the elected officials and governing body. You've adopted ordinances that have delegated the decision to other entities within the county, being staff to make a tentative decision and then ultimately an appeal to a hearings officer who makes the final decision. And there's a lot of process and procedure involved in land use decisions, and it's because it's to ensure that all decisions are treated the same. And so I think I've said this before, but I think it would be a concern to me if we were to start deviating from what is the procedures that have been adopted by the board, that have been adopted by state law, and that are in place pursuant to agreements. I can feel Mr. Messina is very passionate about this particular application. He has opportunities to participate as well. With it when to making comments and applications, and that's sort of how it has to work. If we deviate from that, that could lead to the applicant or anyone adversely impacted by our decision to have a grounds to appeal it on procedural matters as opposed to substance, and that is kind of the worst. The worst way to lose an appeal is that we didn't follow what we were supposed to do and how we were supposed to do it, and so that's why. Generally, I would advise not to reach out. We've done what we're supposed to do. We've notified Ashland. How Ashland chooses to respond is on Ashland. If Ashland doesn't respond, that's not a county failing to meet its requirements. That's Ashland not choosing to respond for whatever reason, be it they didn't know about it, they lost the piece of paper, or they just decided it wasn't worth making a comment on. We send out lots of applications to cities within mutual areas of concern throughout. We have 11 cities in the county. Lots of people do development in the areas. The county doesn't have the resources and doesn't have the requirement to go and continually follow up to see if people want to make a comment from their cities. And so, Mr. Messina, I would recommend that you participate to the extent that you can within the framework of the land use decision. Continue to advocate as you will, but our board has really no authority to make this decision. They've delegated it to the planning department, and then any appeal on that to a hearings officer.
Thank you, Joel. And anybody can apply, and we can't comment, but we can't force anybody to comment. But anyway, thank you.